professional wrestling, a sports entertainment full of theatrics, costumes and personas. What once was a staple program within every household of the UK has now become a less televised form of entertainment, now only remembered by a handful of homes around the country. However, during its prime from the 60s to 80s, it had great popularity, bringing in millions of viewers each day. But what has become of this oh so beloved sport, and what took over? I had the pleasure of speaking to a few of the most popular and well-known wrestlers who were known legends during the prime of British wrestling in the 60s through to the 80s, and are often recognised now, to get their thoughts and views towards one of the biggest promotion of the time, ITV's World of Sport, and to understand their opinions and views in regards to if the current British wrestling scene can ever live up to the reputation of World of Sport.
My name is Peter Thornley, but I used to wrestle and still appear as Kendall Ragazzi.
I'm Skull Murphy, from Plymouth in Devon.
I'm Mal Sanders. I wrestled from 1977 to about 5 years ago, 2017. I had a 40-year career, which is quite a long career.
My name is, like many wrestlers, have many different names. My real name is Frank Cullen. I've been known as Frank Chick Cullen, I've been known as Chick Cullen, I've been known as Kid Cullen. And when I wrestled in Canada, I had this name called Robbie Stewart. So yeah, that's it. But really, I'm Frank Cullen.
My name is Johnny Saint. I've been or have been a professional wrestler, involved in the wrestling business all my life.
My name is Colin Jones. I was born in Manchester. I started wrestling at the age of 17 in the Manchester YMCA, and I turned professional at the age of 17.
Go on, you did first.
My name is Keith Myers. I come from Stoke-on-Trent, born and raised in Stoke-on-Trent, and I've been wrestling. This will be my 40th year this year wrestling. Long time ago, Bobby. Long time.
Right, and I'm Bob Barrett. I've been wrestling from 78, which will be 44 years.
Yeah.
Well, World of Sport exposure to a larger audience. I mean, I didn't go onto the television until 1971. Although I started wrestling in 1964, I didn't actually go on the television until 1971 because I was considered to be too controversial. And a lot of my bouts are quite rough and bloody, and they considered World of Sport to be more family oriented. Once you go on the television, you get seen by millions. So your popularity goes to the sky very quickly. Within 2 appearances on the television, well, I was an household name. Because on the 3rd appearance I went on the television, the mask came on, and then everybody wanted to see the mascot. That was with Billy Owls. So the answer to that is World of Sport on television makes you into a household name.
World of Sport did for me, obviously, made my career better in this country. Because you get recognised, people want to come and see you. Especially looking like me, you don't recognise a lot. Yeah, so World of Sport, it was a great Saturday afternoon. Not just for me, but don't forget there was 24 million tuning in to watch wrestling on World of Sport Saturday afternoons. It was that popular.
Yeah, well, obviously, World of Sport projects you in the public. I mean, I used to go into shops and get recognised, and you go places. I mean, some people like it, some people don't like it, but it was just a great era. You know, I'm old school, and they were great characters in those days, and great wrestlers. And, probably changed a little bit now. We used to be like the dressing rooms used to be full of laughter and sort of banter. I understand now it's a bit quieter, but yeah, I'm lucky to be in the era I was in, I think, because we had some great characters and some great wrestlers.
Massive exposure to you know, being on the TV, to bring wrestling to the living rooms of people all around the country. And what you got to remember is in them days there wasn't as many channels as there is now. So if the wrestling was on, I think there was something like originally 3 channels, wasn't it? BBC, ITV, and BBC Two. And so if you were on the TV, most people tuned in, and there'd be millions of people watching each week. So the exposure was fantastic, and that then went on to transcend into like when people went to live wrestling, the halls were always packed, you know.
Yeah. You could be on the TV on a Saturday afternoon when there was probably, I don't know how many, they said 12 million viewers or 9 million, whatever, and it could make or break you, you know, and if you went to a show that following week or something, everybody would be saying, oh, we saw him on the telly last week, you know, so it could make you...
It put me on the map. World of sport, I mean, you know, you can be a wrestler and you can go around the halls for years and years, and there's only the people who go to that hall who know you, but once you appear on television, the world's your oyster. I mean, it opened so many doors for me, it was unbelievable.
World of Sport was good because it publicised you, and promoters from across the seas, that's how they got to know you from World of Sport. And a lot of the guys didn't travel like I did, but I was a world traveller.
Well, I think it was too early, it should have stayed on, because they took it off there, and then of course WWE came along, or WWF as it's known now, and made it into a huge multi-million-pound business. I believe that British wrestling could have survived and could have had a slot. I think they took it off too early and inappropriately. It's all down to Greg Dyke, who wasn't a wrestling fan. He just didn't like it. Too working class orientated. They wanted to try and up the old concept of World of Sport. That was the programme, they took it off. Wrong.
Absolutely unbelievable. It should never have come off. The entertainment that we give on Saturday afternoons, World of Sport, was wrestling as well as entertainment. Now you've got entertainment with the Americans. That's all it is, it's entertainment. There's not a lot of wrestling that happens. But there was a World of Sport. There was wrestling and entertainment mixed in, but there was a hell of a lot of good wrestlers.
All very disappointed because it was very big. I mean, from the 60s onwards, you know, wrestling everybody used to watch wrestling on Saturday afternoon. It was what you did. And I think it was a fellow called Greg Dyke who took over, who's the chairman of the Football Association, I believe now, but then he was the head of ITV. And just decided that a new broom would sweep clean, and he just got rid of his old programmes. World of Sport being one of them. It did come back wrestling on its own for a little while, but it was never the same, you know, as it was when it was in World of Sport. So. But yeah, disappointing because it was our life, you know.
Well, me personally, it came off in 1988. That was the first year that I started tagging with Kendo Nagasaki, which was the biggest shock for my career I ever had. And I'm forever grateful to him and to Brian Dixon, whatever, you know, but for the opportunity to do that. But we just did one TV, but we packed the halls every night of the week for 4.5 years. Me and Kendo with A-Stacks, Rocco, Marty Jones, anybody you care to mention, Pat Roach, all these top of the bill men. And to me it was such a shot in the arm, but really it was just after it struck off the TV.
Well, you know, I'm one of the few people who think it was time. I think it was the right thing to do at the time. I think it should have been back, though long since then. But at the time, it was a financial decision, and not a lot of people know this, but back in the day, for London Weekend Television to come out and film a wrestling match in, say, a local town hall, for which they get 2 weeks of viewing out of it, cost about £30,000, and that was a lot of money back then. WWF, which are now known as WWE, wanted to get a foothold in the UK market, and Vince McMahon, being the very smart businessman that he is, decided to send London Weekend Television tapes of his product from the US. And London Weekend said, how much do you want for it? They said, we don't want nothing. So they were putting on this new product, this new glitzy glam or American wrestling as we know it, for nothing, So it was a no-brainer that they would get rid of the stale or the well-worn product that was World of Sport Wrestling. So it was a financial decision, one which we all missed and loved, but I think it's time we should be back by now because the product is so much different.
I thought it was very sad actually because you would notice on a Saturday afternoon, I think it was 4 o'clock when it came on, wasn't it? The streets used to go deserted and quiet. Everything quieted down for the next hour. World of Sport. As soon as it was over, everything seemed to come back to life again.
I didn't like it because that was about 1988, and I was the publican then, and I came out of retirement to do a match with Marty Jones, the World Championship. And Marty Jones, he stayed champion, and then I did another match with Pat Roach, and we did the last match on World of Sport TV. And World of Sport television was taken off by I forget his name now, but the American wrestlers put their wrestling on the television. If they had the English wrestling, they had to pay for it. Where the American wrestlers give them their wrestling to show their style. And it overtook. And the likes of the Hulk Hogans and Randy Savages and people like that, they was the ones people have begun to forget. Mick McManus and Jackie Pano and Ray Steele and different people and Billy Robinson, and all they knew was Hulk Hogan, and you know, it wasn't right for me.
No, it hasn't got the opportunities. It doesn't have the media exposure. It'll never be the same. It just doesn't have the exposure. And wrestling's moved on. It wouldn't be the same old style, would it? What they expect now is what I call Strictly Come Dancing on steroids, basically. You know, they're very theatrical, it's very choreographed. And they all take, well, a lot of them take steroids, so they all look like cartoon characters. So it's not the World of Sport days at all.
Absolutely not. I say that because they're all sort of doing the same flying about in acrobatic wrestling, as they call it, and it just never appealed to me.
Maybe it's great, mate. I know times change and things evolve, but not really. I speak a lot to people, like people here today, you know, and they won't have the camaraderie in 20 years' time that we've got, like today here. You know, the camaraderie's not there anymore. You know, there's just something missing. I mean, I'm not around it a lot now, but from what I hear from people, and we're just very lucky to have lived in the era we did.
It's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's totally different now, isn't it?
It's totally different. It's because like people just saw wrestling on TV, and that now there's the internet, there's everything. You can watch wrestling anywhere. You can stream it, or you can pay for it. And you know, it's a totally different.
And also, if you were born after 1988, the World of Sport Wrestling was just something that you can watch on YouTube and things like that. So, and then Hulk Hogan came along in the early 80s and people like that. The Americans had the money, they had the dollar to spend on massive shows, stadium shows, WrestleMania like last night, and they had the money to spend on things like that. But once you come off the TV, then they became that little bit of a dwelling things. But like, you know, you can go to a show now anywhere in Britain, you still got your characters there and stuff like that, and you know, just have to work that bit. Oh, that's why me and Bob, we got over 80 odd years together, experience in wrestling. That's why we still do what we called old school, because the gimmick is old school. So we just like old school. But we like to bring a lot of stuff back in our repertoire. It's like used to be done in the World of Sport days, things like that. You know, goodies versus baddies and all that, like, you know. And I think it's still very popular, you know, in a lot of shows. I think the formula
there's a place for
still
that.
works.
There's a place for that because now, again, there's so many of them. You'll watch a match, and then you watch the next match, and then you watch the next match.
It's the same.
It's the same, you know.
Yeah.
They've watched these Americans and all these big flips and all that. Obviously, we can't do that.
They're good. They're good,
but
they're good at what they do.
They're
They're
very
physical
good.
specimens. They're great at what they do.
But they're acrobats.
But like, there's various people who are wrestling today. It's like in the first 5 minutes they'll do something where basically years ago you would have been from that hold. You would have been pinned at 1, 2, 3, but they jumped straight
Or
up
you'd
there.
have been dead.
Yeah, you'd have been dead.
Yeah.
So like at the end of the day, it's changed. But I think eventually we'll come full circle again. Perhaps after a time.
Reputation-wise, no, it's a different product totally now. It's like talking about football players. Could George Best or Bobby Charlton make a big impact in today's game? Probably not. Wrestling's the same. It's a whole different ball game altogether. It's a modern game. It's progressed. It's moved on. But the good thing is, so many of the old guys are still well known and famous for how they apply their craft, which obviously means something they were good at something right.
Well, I've often asked myself this question, but of course we've got to remember that things have got to progress with time. You can't sell a loaf that's a year old and expect it to be fresh. So you have to. Do you understand what I'm trying to get at? You've got to move with the times.
I don't think so, but they're educated to a different style altogether now. And when I look at it, it's just bang, crash, wallop. And the match lasts 10 minutes. Where in our day, they saw wrestling, they saw holds put on, they saw moves, Boston crabs, headlocks, wrist locks, leg locks. You don't see that anymore. All you see now is boom, 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 match over. So I don't actually watch it anymore on television. I don't even watch the British wrestling on television because they're trying to copy the Americans too much. And I go to a wrestling club every Saturday run by Marty Jones. And Marty Jones tries to teach the wrestlers old English wrestling, the old style, the old world of sport wrestling style. And that's what we try to do.
While most of the older generation of British wrestlers feel like their craft will never be the same again as big American companies came to the UK with bigger, more elaborate productions and gimmicks that took off with great interest. Apart from a brief contract with ITV showing late night pre-tape shows, televised British wrestling shows were all but gone, leaving fans wondering why a popular programme watched by millions of viewers disappeared. Overall, British wrestling will most likely never be the same it once was. However, it thrives without the TV and it will always rise and dip. But if the UK wrestling scene can overcome the COVID pandemic, it is almost certain it will be as popular as ever and survive anything. But for now, the big American companies such as WWE still continue to keep Britain on the map with their sister company NXT UK. All hope doesn't seem lost for the UK production to hit our TV screens, and hopefully British wrestling can once again rise from the ashes.